Coming up, see what it's like to fly right seat in one of the world's only flying B-24 Liberators.
We show you a cheaper, easier way to stay instrument current.
And a new tool for non-pilot passengers.
And honoring President and pilot George H.W. Bush. AOPA Live This Week begins in just a moment.
Celebrate 20 years of Sonex aircraft by building and flying your dream. Quick handling, fun and capable kit aircraft models to suit your flying passions. Get the best performance per dollar with Sonex aircraft.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Melissa Rudinger.
There's been a huge change in federal regulations that can make your life a lot easier if you're an instrument-rated pilot. The regs say you have to fly at least 6 approaches and fly a hold within 6 months to stay current.
But for many of us GA pilots, that's hard to do, as you know, Melissa. We just don't fly enough in instrument conditions to stay current. So we have to go up with a safety pilot or an instructor to get the required approaches under the hood or do a full-blown instrument proficiency check. Until now.
So the Part 61 rule change that came into effect last week now allows pilots to use a device like an ATD to maintain their instrument currency in just the same way that they would have previously done it in an aircraft.
It's right there in FAR 61.57. 6 instrument approaches, holding procedures, and course intercept and tracking logged in instrument conditions within the preceding 6 months in order to fly with passengers in IMC. Trouble is, staying current is hard because most of us fly most of the time in visual conditions. But now you can get current using an FAA-approved flight training device or aviation training device.
You can now fly times when you wouldn't be able to fly outside. If you had icing conditions or other forms of bad weather, you can still maintain your proficiency without burning your avgas.
And you can do it on your own.
Yeah, and you don't need an authorized instructor available to sign off on this training session in the ATD for these currency activities. That was another part of the Part 61 rule change that went into effect in July.
And you have a year to regain your IFR recent experience in a training device. That's right, 1 year. Yes, I know, most of you read the regs and say, hey, it's 6 months. Not really when you look at it. You get current and you're good for 6 months. Your currency expires, you still have another 6 months to get current again using the ATD or a combination of aircraft and ATD. It's only after you've been out of it for more than a year that you need to get the IPC. Trust me, the folks in the Pilot Information Center have been over and over this. They've talked to the FAA. That's the way it is. So you can use an advanced training device like this Redbird FMX, but some of the desktop trainers have also been approved. Just check for the letter of authorization for the particular device.
So logging these activities, they go in your logbook almost like any other flight. You want to make sure that you're accurately logging the make and model of the device you're using. And you'll be able to find that on the letter of authorization for the device. If you really want to be specific, you can also log the serial number of the device. Otherwise, it gets logged as you know your approaches and holding, intercepting, and tracking activities, whatever you did.
And if you do use the sim to get current, make it a workout.
So if you're looking to maintain your instrument currency in something like an FMX or another ATD, it is a good platform to practice things that you may not be able to do while you're out flying your aircraft, perhaps on your own. So things like electronics familiarization or a partial panel precision approach, practicing those would be good activities to do in an ATD to maintain currency.
So, Melissa, I think, again, for me as an instrument pilot, this is really a huge deal, and it makes so much sense. And it's something that you folks in the advocacy have been working on for quite a while.
It is. We'll take some credit for it. I mean, it's a group effort, but anything to make it easier to stay current, and it makes sense.
It does. It makes sense, and it makes us safer pilots.
We'll keep looking for opportunities like that in the future. Now news about 2 endangered airports in California. First, Santa Monica. As we've previously reported, the city wants to rip up the runway ends. They previously marked both ends to effectively shorten the runway to 3,500 feet. The city plans to use airport funds to destroy those portions of the runway, and that's against FAA policy and regulations, according to AOPA and 2 other organizations. The 3 have sent this letter to the FAA demanding that the agency stop the city from using airport funds to destroy the airport and threatening more formal action if the FAA doesn't do its job.
And moving north up the coast a bit, the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors has voted to eventually close Reed-Hillview Airport, that to build low-cost housing. Well, the hearing room this week was packed. More than 70 people spoke over some 5 hours, and many of them supporting the airport.
When large-scale emergencies occur, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services uses a network of airports to meet the needs of the incident. For the recent Camp Fire, 7 different airports were used for different functions within the response and recovery operations. Losing any of these airports would have increased the response time to those relying on emergency aviation. For the Bay Area Catastrophic Earthquake Plan, Reed-Hillview is part of the network of airports that would be used for life-saving and life-sustainment operations. These airports will be incredibly important to transport commodities and first responders into various disaster areas until roads and bridges are cleared for operation.
The county staff recommended keeping the airport open. AOPA urged the county to apply for future FAA grants, but the supervisors voted 3-2 to move Reed-Hillview operations to San Martin Airport and not take any more federal money for Reed-Hillview. But existing federal grants will keep the airport open until 2031, so there's still some time to reverse the decision. This is another one that you guys have been working on for at least 20 years.
Reed-Hillview's been threatened in the past, and we've been successful. So, well, it's an important airport. All airports are important, but this is one we want to keep fighting for, and we will.
And it has an important bit of history. Did you know that Sean D. Tucker learned to fly at Reed-Hillview?
I did not, but that's good enough reason for me to keep it open.
Indeed.
There's a new tool to help your non-pilot passenger help you. Pilot Workshops is offering a pilot-friendly manual for the flying companion. It's a handy guide for 50 tasks a non-pilot can complete. Jeff Van West from Pilot Workshops says the tasks are easy to understand and can make it fun.
Some of them are real simple, practical stuff like, loading the baggage. Once you understand how things go and how a loading diagram works and where you can and can't put stuff, you can load up the airplane. A pilot can get kind of tired of having to worry about all that. If you can trust your companion to do it, all the better. And then we get into things like, checking the oil and adding the oil, paying for fuel, fueling an airplane, and stuff in flight, from the basics of how to look for traffic.
The book sells for $49, and the team at Pilot Workshops suggests it would make a great Christmas present for your traveling companions. Find the details and samples of the book on their website.
The Civil Air Patrol is growing their flight training opportunities. The CIP Youth Initiative just got $2.4 million from the Air Force. The funds will be used for flight training, career exploration, and STEM support. CIP offers a number of academies and scholarships to help students get a jump start on their flight training. You can find out more on the Civil Air Patrol website. And coming up after the break, flying a piece of history.
More news on an affordable ADS-B solution and honoring Bush 41.
From the beginning, Garmin has been the leader in ADS-B development. Since the early proof-of-concept days of ADS-B in the late 1990s, we've been actively involved in delivering to pilots the most complete picture of traffic to increase awareness and enhance safety in any airspace.
Welcome back. More than 90,000. That's how many of you have come to one of our regional fly-ins since they started 5 years ago. The events have proven to be an ideal place for pilots to enjoy camaraderie, learn how to be a safer pilot, and engage with AOPA. And you won't want to miss our fly-ins next year as we celebrate 80 years of AOPA. We'll announce our 2019 locations in January.
Get-there-itis is a trap that all pilots can fall into, but the consequences can be severe. That's the subject of the latest Air Safety Institute video called Blind Over Bakersfield. Now, the video shows a Piper Lance flying from Reed Hillview in San Jose, California to Henderson, Nevada. The non-instrument pilot took off with his family on a trip to attend a surprise party despite a large swath of IFR conditions along the route. Now, the pilot intentionally flew into the clouds, lost control, and the aircraft broke up. The ASI video walks through lessons learned and ways to prevent falling into the get-there-itis trap.
How can we learn from the risks this pilot took to make us all safer pilots in the future? While we cannot know exactly what the pilot was thinking, the external pressure of arriving for the party that night cannot be overlooked. It's likely that his focus on arriving as scheduled impaired his ability to assess the bigger picture and make a more objective decision. Research has shown that when we have an especially high level of self-interest, it's difficult to make a sound judgment. We must all be on guard anytime we know there are external pressures encouraging us to get to our destination.
You can find the full video on the Air Safety Institute website.
The experimental aircraft market is coming to China. Lee owning Cub Aircraft says its top Cub will be the first kit airplane in China. The Aviation Authority recently authorized experimental building in the country. The top Cub was originally designed by Cub crafters. It will be powered by the Continental Titan IO360 engine. To start, 6 top Cubs will be built by their owners in China.
Avionics announced this week that the U.S. Patent Office is going to issue a patent on its Aircraft Navigation Light ADS-B radio and the power transcoder. Now, both technologies are part of the SkyBeacon ADS-B out solution. Now, you'll remember that Garmin has filed a patent infringement lawsuit against Avionics over the SkyBeacon. That case will be heard sometime in 2020. Neither company had a comment on how the patent grant to Avionics would affect the Garmin suits.
And now to something with a little older technology. The B-24 Liberator was one of the heavy bombers that helped the Allies win World War II. Over 18,000 were built, but now there are only 2 left in flyable condition. AOPA's Director of E-Media, Alyssa Cobb, recently had a chance to fly one of them, operated by the Collings Foundation.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Cobb, and today I'm going to fly the B-24 Liberator with the Wings of Freedom Tour Chief Pilot. I'm so excited. I'm multi-engine rating, but I'm going to be jumping from a twin-engine Aztec to the 4-engine Liberator. So excited to have you come along with me. Let's go.
Get ready for the mags.
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mags on.
Okay.
Credit ground, Liberator 224 Juliet, in front of the restaurant, VFR to the northeast, information Foxtrot.
For takeoff, what we're going to do, I'm going to probably do a rolling takeoff. We'll just roll into the normal, start getting the power up. I'll have you try to help me set the power. We're going to use 44 inches of manifold pressure to take off.
Okay.
So as we get towards there, they're all rigged differently and the turbos kind of spool up at different speeds. So I'll have you on the base of the throttles try to line them up at 44. And once they're there, we'll lock them down.
Okay.
And the first power reduction I'll call for, I'll ask for the gear too, so you'll have to reach over, give that a shove. And Gary can do anything that you're too busy to do or whatever happened.
Okay.
But and then after that, we'll do our first power reduction. So you'll reach over, 2 hands, tap, 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 just get them down. It'll be 2,500, but I'll call for it when it.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right.
And clock set.
Yep. And we're on tower if you want to get the call.
Subject Tower, Liberator 224 Juliet, ready for takeoff, runway 5.
Alright, see if you can fine tune them at 44 for me. And reach over to your right hand and lock them down. certified. That feels good. 100 miles an hour. 110. Okay, now positive rate. Give the gear handle a good shove. I think you got it. Yep. If you want to grab the checklist, we'll do the after takeoff.
Okay. After takeoff, wheels braked.
They are. And up.
Landing gear up.
Yep.
Turbos reduced.
They're off.
Throttle set.
They are.
Prop set.
They are.
Flaps up.
Yep.
Fuel boost pumps off. Pressure checked.
Go ahead and turn them off one at a time while watching the fuel pressure.
Okay, 1. Off. 2. 3. And 4.
Alright.
Hydraulic switch off.
It is.
Engines visually checked.
Mine look good. They're not on fire.
Mine look good. They're not on fire either. Goodness.
Want to fly?
Cruise?
Not yet. You want to fly?
Oh, yeah.
Alright, whenever you're ready, you have the flight controls.
Okay, I have
Keep
the
this
controls.
kind of pitch attitude. We'll keep the airplane climbing up at this. We'll kind of swing out to the right a little bit, give ourselves some room to do an overhead approach. We'll actually go ahead and level off, so start lowering the nose. 2,000 will work just fine, I think. And now grab the throttles here. As you see the manifold pressure, you're going to pull them back to 30.
Tower Skyhawk 2.
Okay.
Yep. Southwest for entry into the left base, runway 30. Port 5 for left base 30. 73 Delta.
How's it feel to move forward throttles? That kind of cool?
Yeah. That's really cool.
I think there's only about 12 people in the world licensed to fly this airplane as PIC. I think it's actually one of the hardest production airplanes in history to fly.
Oh, wow.
But she's a sweetheart.
Yeah. How many hours do you have in this one?
About 1,000.
Wow. Hill County traffic, Liberator, base final 3-4.
All right.
Beautiful.
You made it.
That's awesome.
That was so awesome. I don't think my smile will leave for like the next week. That's got to be one of the coolest airplanes I have ever flown.
Very impressive. The Collings Foundation B-24 flies around the country on the Wings of Freedom tour. The tour also features a B-17, B-25, and P-51 Mustang, all of which played crucial roles in World War II.
And finally, we remember and honor another veteran of that great war, our 41st President, George Herbert Walker Bush. As we record this, Air Force Special Mission 41 is flying from Joint Base Andrews back to Houston and the President's final resting place. And we remember George Bush as a fellow aviator. As you've seen reported elsewhere, as soon as he turned 18, he joined the Navy to fly fighters, one of the youngest naval aviators of the war. He flew some 58 combat missions off a carrier and a TBM Avenger. On one mission, he took extensive anti-aircraft fire, but continued the bombing run even though his engine was on fire. He and his crew bailed out, but only he survived to be rescued by a submarine. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross and 3 other air medals. Although he stopped piloting after the war, aviation remained a touchstone of his life, as former Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney explained in his eulogy.
He led me down the porch at Walker's Point to the side of the house that fronts the ocean and pointed to a small, simple plaque that had been unobtrusively installed just some days earlier. It read, CAVU. George said, Brian, this stands for Ceiling and Visibility Unlimited. When I was a terrified 18 to 19-year-old pilot in the Pacific. Those were the words we hoped to hear before takeoff. It meant perfect flying. And that's the way I feel about our life today. CAVU. Everything is perfect.
Former AOPA President Craig Fuller served as Vice President Bush's Chief of Staff. Craig and I talked about his experiences with George H.W. Bush.
We traveled to over 60 countries in every state in the nation multiple times. It just was a superb individual to work with. I think what people are seeing publicly is what we saw privately. He's gracious. He treats people with dignity. And most of all, and most amazing to me, wherever we went, at the foot of those stairs, when you get off of Air Force Two, there would be a number of people standing there to greet him who were long trusted friends. And his relationships spanned all 50 states and most of the globe.
Do you have a personal story that you could tell that sort of illustrates the character of the man?
Oh, one that I certainly think about and relating to aviation in a way is when we lost the space shuttle with a teacher on board. And really without having to be asked, he was ready, and Air Force Two was called up at Andrews, and we were on our way to Florida. So he could be with the families of the crew, the people at Kennedy Space Center, and really the families of the teacher. He wanted to comfort them. He wanted to tell them how much he respected them, and that we were, of course, going to continue with the space program. But it was one of those things that is never easy for any individual, but he knew it was the right thing to do, and he went and did it. And that's really the kind of person he was.
You know, Melissa, I had the honor to meet then Vice President Bush in Argentina, and of course I was amongst a crowd of people that were there to shake his hand and say hello. But the thing that struck me was that for the few moments that I had with him, he was interested in me. He was asking me questions, and he clearly was interested in what I had to say. And the way he treated all of the staff and the other people around him, it was just an example of what people in public life and people in private life really should aspire to be.
Truly special. I know a small story. So occasionally, as you know, Marine One lands here. We're near Camp David, and if the weather's bad up there, they'll motorcade up. And I do remember occasionally it landing here, and President Bush taking the time that we all went out to wave, and took the time to open the door and wave, and I believe his dog was with him, and you know, just was really, it just took the time. It only took a few seconds, but to make us all feel really special.
Yeah, and his note writing was legendary. Everybody got a handwritten note from the president.
Yes, indeed.
It was indeed. Well, that's it for this week. We thank you so much for joining us.
If you have any comments on the show, send us a note at aopalive@aopa.org, and we'll see you back here next Thursday.
Blue skies, everyone.
Meet the pilots who fly with AOPA Insurance. They love flying and saving money, just like you. At AOPA Insurance, we understand how you fly and provide the coverage you need to keep on flying. Call for a free quote and see which AOPA insurance plan is right for you.